I have for you is a word.
Confusing. Making this video is a weird feeling because it's the first time I'm talking about a movie without fully understanding what exactly happens in it. And I want to use the next 8 minutes or so to explain my initial thoughts on Christopher Nolan's Tenet and why all the confusion actually fits the theme of faith or belief presented in the film. No spoilers, don't worry. Written and directed by Nolan, Tenet was released in August of 2020 after several long months of lockdown amid a global pandemic. This was supposed to be the movie that saves cinema. Now, initial reactions to the film were mostly positive, with solid performances all around from the cast, meticulously planned and expertly executed action, and a score that kept me on the edge of my seat for 2 hours. But while all this is very impressive, I have to concede that the film is also very complicated, often to a fault. While I understood the first half well enough, the second half moves at an almost breakneck speed, forcing us to absorb information very quickly, while also asking the audience to juggle in our heads an increasingly difficult to understand concept of time inversion. This was a very bold move by Chris Nolan, which was admirable, but ultimately makes the film more inaccessible, like a joke that only the smartest people in the room would get. The last action set piece in particular has so many things happening on screen at the same time that I often found myself lost and overwhelmed. Coming out of the theater, I couldn't shake this feeling of annoyance. Christopher Nolan movies are known for making complex topics cinematic and at least mildly understandable, and I wasn't used to feeling this level of confusion from a Chris Nolan movie. Based on the ever so reliable Rotten Tomatoes scores, it seems like several critics are in agreement as well. Watching some interviews, even the cast members weren't sure what was going on.
When you're describing this film to your friends, like casually, how do you begin to do it? Because I've just been going, it's a Christopher Nolan movie.
Well, I was gonna say, like, so y'all know who Christopher Nolan is? Y'all like Chris? Like, first time I read the script, it took me 4 hours to read it, and he was very patient with me.
Apparently, Robert, you still don't get it. Do you get Tenet?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of you definitely get it more like when
To be fair, this is probably more of an act since they spent such a long time with the script as well as Nolan himself. But here's a crazy idea, and this is my biggest takeaway from these interviews. Maybe Nolan did intend for Tenet to be somewhat confusing, because when you look at it as a whole, Tenet isn't just about war or spies or time travel or even this concept of entropy and inversion. It's actually also about faith or belief in a greater cause. Without any spoilers, our protagonist is given a special mission to stop a disaster, but he doesn't know who his employer is, he doesn't know the scale of the threat that he's facing, and he doesn't know how he's going to stop this threat. All he can do is talk to people to learn more and plan as he goes along. With this character, Nolan is also telling the audience to keep watching, to have faith that as our protagonist learns more, so do we. Now, the protagonist, that's literally his name by the way, isn't told that much, but
All I have for you is a word.
Tenet. This word and the title of this movie is our second clue about the theme of faith and belief. As well as being a smart palindrome, meaning it reads the same forwards and backwards, Tenet, the word, is defined as a principle, belief, or doctrine generally held to be true, especially one held in common by members of an organization. The very title of this movie is telling us that this is a story which isn't always clear-cut, but if we hold on to our belief in others and believe that others will do the same for us, then the picture will be clearer in the end. While this film isn't religious, I think there's definitely a message surrounding the collective power of belief to help humanity. What I think is pretty meta is that the movie isn't explicitly about belief, but it requests that we, the audience, have this belief in order to view the film in its most complete cinematic form. And if you still need more evidence that Tenet is about believing, here's a line from the trailer.
Don't try to understand it. feel it.
It's not even a question of getting everything or even anything.
When I saw it for the first time again, it's one of the only movies where I watched and I could completely just let myself go watching it.
We want the audience to go wow and whoa and react to it in that way, and not try to understand it necessarily on the first time, but just as the trailer says, don't try to understand it, feel it.
I think that Nolan uses this line to acknowledge that the plot can be confusing, that this is a pretty deep topic, and that it's okay if we don't understand it, but more important, that we feel it. We feel the momentum of Ludwig Göransson's loud and unrelenting score. We feel the awesomeness of Hoyte van Hoytema's visceral cinematography. We feel the very real crashes of Jim Wilkie's stunts. These feelings are the foundations on which we build our beliefs. They make us believe that something important is happening, even if we don't fully get it. And we have to read like 10 plot summaries on Reddit to understand what a film was about.
And everything else is all that fun stuff, at least that I enjoy, leaving a movie theater and talking all the way home with my wife about what did you think, what did I think, and trying to answer the riddles.
I mentioned earlier that Tenet is about belief in a greater cause, and I think that cause is cinema. In my opinion, after months of lockdown and not going to the cinema, there's no better way to get back than to be swept away by the sensory overload of Tenet. The movie watching experience of Tenet is still astounding. Christopher Nolan is a cinema purist, so if anyone is going to create an unbridled cinematic experience revolving around a complex concept, it's him. You only need to look at Memento, Inception, and Interstellar to see this. With Tenet though, it feels like Nolan takes it 5 steps further. It's a tradition for Christopher Nolan to gather his cast and crew before making a film and show them older movies that inspired the film they're currently working on together, just to align everyone on what Nolan is looking for. For example, in Dunkirk, he screened old war movies, and for The Dark Knight, he showed his team Michael Mann's Heat. But for Tenet, Nolan broke tradition and didn't show his cast any movies at all. In Nolan's own words, the reason was, I think we all have the spy genre so in our bones and in our fingertips. I actually wanted to work from a memory and a feeling of that genre, rather than the specifics. Nolan is a huge James Bond fan, but he wanted to rely on instinct and his prior influence to create something wholly original with his team, with elements of the spy and action genre, but also some fresh influences from a sci-fi thriller. The result is Tenet. Now, I don't think it's Nolan's best movie, I wouldn't put it in my top 5, but it's interesting to consider that Nolan and the entire team believed in creating a challenging narrative with the escapism, wonder, and thrill of the best cinematic experience, something that he believed we could revisit again and again, believing we would find something new. And all Nolan is asking is for us to believe along with him. Hey guys, thanks for watching that video. I hope you got a fresh perspective today. I'm really curious to know, what did you think of Tenet? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to share this video as well if you learned something new. I will be back with a rankings video of Christopher Nolan's best and worst movies, so look forward to that one. As always, have a great week ahead, maximum hype, and I'll see you soon.